Now here you go again. You say you want the freedom. Well, who am I to keep you down? It's only right that you should play the way you feel it. But listen carefully to the sound of your loneliness, like a heartbeat drives you mad. In the stillness of remembering what you had and what you lost and what you had and what you lost. Thunder only happens when it's raining. Players only love you when they're playing. Women, they will come and they will go. Yeah. When the rain washes you clean, you will know. You know.
Yes, Professor, you can already start.
Okay. Assalamualaikum and a very good day, everyone. Welcome to the Asia Pacific Franchise Federation's education webinar. And I am Professor Dr. Azmawani Abdul Rahman, CEO and President of Putra Business School. And at the same time, I am also the Vice Chairman of National and International Relations, Malaysian Franchise Association. So today we have a very good topic, an interesting topic, which is on how to enter the Malaysia market. And today we have two prominent speakers who will be sharing with us deeply on this topic. So we have with us right now, Mr. Derek Yeo and also Madam Wong Jini. Yes, the two of them are here already. And before I proceed, I'm pleased actually to share their short bio. And before that, I would like also to remind you that at the throughout the, you can ask any question. If you have any questions, you can post your questions at Q&A section throughout their sharing. You don't wait until the end. And I will be reading their questions. I will addressing your questions after they finish their presentation. Yeah. So our first speaker, which is Mr. Derek Yeo, will be sharing with us on topic franchising trends. Yeah, and updates. Very important. And let me tell you a bit about Mr. Derek Yeo. So Mr. Derek Yeo, who is currently Secretary General at the Malaysia Franchise Association, and also currently is a Chief Development Officer at the Kopitiam Asia Pacific Sdn Bhd Old Town White Coffee. And Derek Yeo previously was the Director for the Revenue Valley Sdn Bhd, which houses local and international F&B brands such as the Manhattan Fish Market, New York Steak Shack, and the new brand Dapurla. And he has been active in the area of franchise business development for the group for the past 10 years. And he is also the Vice Chairman of Malaysia Franchise Association 2019 to 2021. He has been frequent contributor to the Malaysian franchise industry for training and seminars provided by Malaysia Franchise Association. Furthermore, he is also chairman of the Franchise Malaysia exhibition. Derek has been appointed as a chairman, was the chairman of the Nexus Productivity of Retail and Food Beverages under the Malaysia Productivity Corporation. His international experience include the franchise development and consultancies in Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, Thailand, Myanmar, Sri Lanka, Oman, and many, many more. Yeah. So Derek is all ready right now to share his topic on franchising trends and update. Remember, if you have any question, you can post your questions at question and answer. And Derek, the floor is yours right now. Please welcome.
Hi, everyone. Hi, good afternoon. Let me just try to pull my slide. Okay. Okay, can you see my slide, Professor?
Yes, proceed. Very well.
Okay. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Today I'm just here to share a little bit of current updates of our franchising in Malaysia, a little bit of sentiment and also the development, especially after the post-pandemic, yeah. So what we're going to talk about is a little bit quick overview of Malaysia, the demographic, the franchise trends, the new adaptation and new formal business operations after pandemic, expansion of Malaysian franchises, the entry, how to enter the market entry processes, and also some of the brands that we have here, and also a little bit more about our franchise exhibition coming up in May 2023. Now, in terms of populations, we are just like any other ASEAN countries members. We have a very diverse cultural ethnicity in Malaysia, especially in terms of populations. We probably currently at 32.5 or 32, slightly more populations at the moment. This is the data in 2021. And of course, we have, in terms of the gender population, it's quite balanced, but we have more male over here. And these are some of the demographic. We can see that we have the urbanization, quite kind of a percentage, about 77%, density about 99%, especially the urban area. Over literacy rate is about 95%. And the next one is about the gateway to Asia. Malaysia is actually in the center of ASEAN. We can say a bit here is that we are very strategy in terms of location. Same goes for other regions of ASEAN countries here. In fact, we are able to reach a lot of markets at our current, in this location that we are strategically placed. Yeah. So 32 million of population. So a little bit about this. This is some of our Malaysia market demographic. Of course, I'm sure a lot of us are familiar with Malaysia, but then today the topic is more on the franchise development. So I won't go very deep into the demographic as per se, what I mentioned just now. So in Malaysia, franchise industry is having a few stakeholders to build the franchise industry together. Mainly, Malaysia Franchise Association is actually an NGO. We represent the NGO, and we are the bridge between players and government. And of course, we are part of WFC and also APFC. And we are the one who support a lot of government agenda and initiative to promote, develop Malaysia franchise brands and products locally and also internationally. As of course, Malaysia Franchise Association is also one of the one-stop center to cater for all the information needed in terms of the franchise industry. Of course, the other we call it our parents kind of ministry that we work closely is actually the Ministry of Domestic Trade and Cost of Living. We have changed the name of this ministry recently. They are the policymakers. They are the one who have the govern the Franchise Act 1998. Malaysia have the Franchise Act 1998, and they are the registrar of franchise, whereby all the franchise business, international or local, will have to go through the registrations in this registrar of franchise under this ministry. And of course, we have different government body agencies that help us in terms of developing the franchise industry as well. Especially Pernas, or the agency under them is like MEDAC, and they are the one who actually arrange and help in terms of the franchise financing assistance. Yeah. Now, a little bit of franchise trend in Malaysia. Of course, I think it's quite similar to some of our Asian ASEAN members here. Food and beverage, or F&B, is actually the highest percentage of the franchise compositions in Malaysia. So it's actually followed by the service and maintenance, learning center and training, clothing, accessories, beauty and health, electronics and ICT, convenience shops and supermarket, and also others. This is the trends of franchise in terms of by category or by sectors, by industry. Yeah. Now, in terms of the number of registrations company that we have captured under the ministry and also the association, we have around 1,154 total registers brand, from homegrown brand to the foreign brands in this franchise environment or the sectors. Yeah. Now, in terms of like what I said just now, in terms of demands of franchise business locally or internationally on Malaysia brand, definitely the first one is still food and beverage. Second one will be retailing. Third one will be training and education, especially the children enrichment centers or brands or products. And of course, the beauty and health. So there are also emerging trends that we actually notice in Malaysia franchise industry. So the Korean food is still very popular here. Japanese food has been here for a while. There are many more shops open in the recent years. Thai food especially, and then there's the coffee trends in Malaysia right now. A lot of coffee players are in the market right now from different places of the world. Of course, there are also local brands, and also there are also very authentic boutique brands happening, blooming in Malaysia market in terms of coffee trend. We also have healthy food coming very strongly after pandemic, which I will talk about it later on. Then there are also emerging trends such as the self-service laundry, or we call it the coin-operated laundry previously, the healthcare, especially the pharmacy. There are different healthcare providers now coming into the franchise industry as well, related, healthcare related. Cleaning services, sanitizing services, home maintenance, even wheel writing services is also some of the trends we saw in the market. Islamic pawnbroking is also that we have in Malaysia. And of course, the education tutoring, subject-specific enrichment centers is something more and more very niche subjects for specialties training or learning has been also on the uptrend in Malaysia. So we also see that there is a continuous request, and then also a lot of build up in terms of fitness, health-related fitness center, martial arts, women's center, Muslimah, young execs, kind of very specialized gym or health and beauty centers booming in Malaysia. We have the Muslimah or the Muslimah clothing brands that is also developing in Malaysia. We have the childcare center, nursery, and there are a lot of retailing, especially the convenience stores, opening a lot in Malaysia in the recent past 2-3 years. Yeah. Brands such as, if you know, besides 7-Eleven, which has been here for many years, there are also brands such as the Family Mart, CU, all these convenience store is actually everywhere that you can see if you come to Malaysia right now. So the pandemic has actually really changed some of the consumer behaviors and also the needs and also the requests or also the ways, the lifestyle here in Malaysia. I mean, I think it should also be similar to a lot of places, but then we can see there's an increase in digital adoption, people shifting to digital platform for day-to-day needs. Changing to in terms of mobility patterns, probably now after pandemic, there are a lot of companies are still practicing work from home, a day or some 2 days work from home per week. So the pattern of transporting or mobility is slightly different. Changes in purchasing behaviors, I would say that it's actually a habit during the lockdown. Probably the consumers are spending more time online to purchase and shopping. So this has the behavior has not changed a lot now. They are actually continuing now online shopping. Increased awareness of health. This is very obvious. Even though now it is like kind of quite after 2-3 years, the pandemic lifestyle, people are still wearing masks. You can see most people are still wearing masks in the very crowded places. They have a more higher expectation in terms of hygiene and also in terms of healthy eating behaviors. They have more requests and ways of looking at the food lately or recent months. Yeah, you can see the differences. So in terms of interpersonal behavior, of course, we can see these are data that we take on, we actually can gather. But then one of the very obvious one is actually the pet adoption during the pandemic. But then I think that there are also pets franchise that we can see in Malaysia that is also doing quite well at the moment. Now, in terms of in this new normal, when we say it's a new normal, is or after the all these past 3 years, and also after the opening of the businesses or the economics the past 1 year, there are many. When we talk about entering into Malaysia, what are some insights that I can share here? Is that even the local or the brands that has been doing business here, they start to do a lot of innovation in terms of their products. Yeah, so they do a lot of collaborations, brands, a lot of collaborations together, because I think all of us have experienced the difficulty during the pandemic. So collaboration is something that we can help each other and actually also can actually expand and leverage on each other's customers or even the database together. So adaptive price offerings also is something that we can see, especially in the F&B scene, that there are segmentizing kind of practice price pricings in terms of menu offerings and products offering is being offered now. Especially they understand there are different requests or different category of consumer behaviors are different from the previous way they are doing business. So they're trying and adapting and to new way of giving affordable or even to capture different segments of the consumers. And of course, one of the challenge that we understand during the pandemic time, actually the lockdown time, in terms of the retail or even the F&B, that is that the shipping or the shipment or the export import has been disrupted quite badly. So in terms of sourcing for ingredients, especially the F&B category, they have to actually be reliant on the products that are available in the local scene. So that's where actually there are a lot of localized ingredients or sourcing happenings. And because of that, a lot of new limited menu has been offered during this period of time. And I think because of that now, a lot of brands are trying to work together with the farmers or even directly from the farms to source for their ingredients. So those are some of the changes that we see happening now. And of course, digitalizing has been sped up. I think digitalizing in Malaysia has been happening many years ago, even before pandemic, but then the pandemic actually sped up everything. So if you can see during the pandemic, a lot of Malaysia is one of the country that depends a lot on foreign labor, especially in the retail and F&B environment, even the service sectors and also the maintenance sectors. During the pandemic, a lot of them went back to their hometown. Then after the economic recovery, they are not back yet. So there's a shortage of labor force in the market while the business is going better and better. So there's a need of moving forward from a very conventional way of doing business to digitalizing in terms of doing business. Besides providing relief in terms of labor shortage, they also give the consumer a new way of a new experience to the consumer in terms of dining out or even shopping at the comfort of their home. So because of that, there are different operating costs, new operating costs incurred. Of course, therefore, doing business now probably have some additional costs or some new costs, may not be additional, but new costs that is happening comparing to 3 years ago. So these are changes that are happening. So in terms of changes in store design, restaurant design, retail stores, or even any shop lots kind of design, I think most of the players are looking at maximizing the space, looking at how productive one square foot kind of space can give the return on investment. So these are the changes. So instead of having a very big storefront, probably there are a lot of compact kind of sizes built up or offerings, a kind of a new setups is being offered. You can see around in the market. And of course, a lot of brands, a lot of businesses are diversifying their business. Mainly, I think, because it's to also spread the risk or spread the offerings or offer more products based on their capability, and also to actually leverage on their specializations or even their capabilities in terms of their back-end supports to different segments. It may be the same industry, but different segment or different brands. So this is what we see, that some brands are having 2-3 smaller brands or 2-3 new brands, but it's actually from the same group. So this is what we can see in the market in Malaysia. So if you're coming to Malaysia, especially the F&B industry, of course, halal, as a population of Malaysia, we have around 60 to 70% of our population in Malaysia is actually Muslim community. So halal is one of the key elements that for us to reach out to everybody, because halal means that everybody can actually enjoy the food if you have halal recognized certification. So that is one insights that you may want to know. And of course, smaller concept like you see here, even collaborations between, you can see here what I show here is actually the latest collaboration between our local brand Tea Life with a very reputable products called Milo. They have just done a collaboration, I think 2 days ago. There's a lot of farm to table products now, from farm to the restaurants. So this is why I say they have a lot of localized sourcing happening in Malaysia. Ready to dish, meaning that it's convenient food where you can buy and then just microwave or just heat up or just a water bath. You can actually enjoy the food. These are some of the new invention after the post-COVID, but it still carry on and continue until now. I think the other thing that the government or the public in Malaysia, especially, of course, in the European or the other Western society, they have been talking about ESG for quite a while. But over here in Malaysia, we've started to talk about it 2-3 years ago, even 4-5 years ago. But then recent years, I think a lot more companies are talking about it, and environmental sustainability efforts and government's effort. Yeah. So a lot of brands is looking into that seriously. They are doing that not because of they were asked to do, but we understand during the COVID time, there are brands, there are situations where supply chain was disrupted. There were even times that we were facing some shortage of protein, like especially chicken, the egg previously. But then there are a lot of innovation products coming into the market, especially plant-based item, which is also healthier options, plant-based chicken, even plant-based egg, which is also available in the market at the moment. So these are some of the changes in terms of doing business in Malaysia, in terms of the landscape change, in terms of offerings, in terms of customers' behavior and consumers' kind of expectations. Yeah. So this is what I can actually share, the recent trend happening in Malaysia. So of course, expansion of Malaysian franchises. Well, you can see there is a lot of homegrown franchise brand that you may have heard about it or you may not heard about it, but this is the fact that we are very strong in F&B. Definitely, you can understand that we have Mary Brown. If you know Mary Brown, is a fast food category. Secret Recipe, the cake, Teh Tarik Place, the Manhattan Fish Market, the seafood, US Pizza. US Pizza is our Malaysia brand pizza chain. Old Town White Coffee is a comfort food, Malaysian food. Pony is the retail garment for kids, clothing. Clean Pro Laundry Bar is automated coin laundry. And we have very strong education sectors, especially the children enrichment, from the arts to the English learning, to the Islamics learning. Even we have our own mathematics kids learning franchise brand. Yeah, so these are some of the homegrown brand and which are expanding and growing year by year. So currently, Malaysia brand is in a lot of countries. Mainly, these are the top 10 countries that have Malaysia brands presence. If you can see here, we have a lot of brands, a lot of outlets in Saudi Arabia, followed by Indonesia, USA, Australia, and China. So yeah, we hope that there are more brands can penetrate these countries and more countries to come. So a little bit on our Malaysia Association of Malaysia Franchise Industry events. And we are going to follow all these events you can see here. Starting from next month, May, we will participate in the Malaysia Pavilion. We will bring Malaysia brands to different trade missions from Melbourne to Bangkok to Jakarta to Turkey and Bangalore for a specialized business mission. Of course, we will also be visiting the Philippine show in October, and as in conjunction with the World Franchise Council meetings and also Asia Pacific meeting. Yeah. So now I will not go into very detail on the franchise side, where I think Mr. Wong will be sharing later. So of course, key considerations to a Malaysian market, of course, you need everyone new here understands that to come into any market, not just Malaysia, you need to have your USP of your brand, your unique selling propositions of a brand, understand a little bit your market share. If you come into Malaysia, your targeted consumer group of your brand, where do you intend to place your store location, the strategic plan? Is it a shopping mall? Is it a shop lot? Well, those are serious consideration you need to think of. The type of franchisee that you're looking for. Are you looking for a single franchisee or a multiple, or you want to appoint a master franchisee? And of course, the investment value of your brand. So whether the brand, well, what kind of is it? In Malaysia, we have a micro franchise. We have a bigger franchise, different setup of franchise available. So when you come in, probably you will need to understand a little bit what will be the best franchise package or investment needed that you can offer to the Malaysia market. Yeah. So a little bit of promotion. We are having our 30th International Convention and Exhibition Franchise Conference in coming May in our Kuala Lumpur City Convention Center in KLCC. So this year, the theme is Rebuilding Growth, Spurring Excellence. So it will be held on the 18th to 20th May 2023. We have 140 booths, expecting 15,000 or more visitors, and we hope to actually attract around 123 million kind of potential investment transaction in this coming exhibition. Yeah, so so what are the activities that we'll have in this convention or this exhibition will be, of course, the exhibition. We have the international conference from the local and international speakers. We have the workshop, of course, business matching, and we are flying in some of the interested buyers for in-buying missions in KLCC itself. Yeah, so far we have around 77 companies registered, 77 brands, 111 booths rented, sold. So we still have some booths. I think there are still a lot of inquiries coming on. Yep, so the countries that is participating this year are Brunei, Australia, South Korea, Indonesia, Philippines, of course, Japan, USA, Taiwan, and Singapore. Yeah, so this is a layout of the KLCC. And yeah, thank you so much. If you have any questions, you can actually put it in your Q&A. Thank you, Professor.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Derek, for very fruitful sharing on trends and updates on franchise industry. Yeah, thank you very much. I have yet to see any question posted, the questions and answer box. So please, if you have any question, please post your questions and answer. Yeah. So moving on, we have our next speaker, Madam Wong Jeannie, to talk about the legal aspect of franchising. So before that, I would like to read a short bio of Madam Wong Jeannie. Yeah? So while she's preparing for the slides, Wong Jeannie obtained her law degree from the University of Sydney, Australia, and was admitted as an advocate and solicitor in the High Court of Malaya in 1991. Jeannie is one of the founding partner of Wong Jeannie and Teo, the firm, with more than 30 years of experience practicing exclusively in the IP field. Jeannie is passionate about IP. Her practice predominantly focuses on the non-contentious commercial and transaction matters, advising clients on various aspects of IP portfolio development, protection, management, enforcement, and monetization. Jeannie also regularly advises clients on franchise matters and guides them on the applicability of the franchise regime to the business model, while structuring agreements to suit their specific needs. She has assisted various local clients with the regional and international expansion of their franchise operation. So Jeannie has guided clients on cross-border and transactional collaboration throughout the world and has assisted many startups, SMEs, and PLCs in identifying and protecting their key IP assets, including advising on filing strategies, building and managing their IP portfolios. So Gini has also successfully implemented brand protection and enforcement program for various Fortune 500 corporations in diverse industry. So that's a brief introduction. So Madam Wong Gini, all yours.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and for those who are calling in from a different time zone, good morning. First of all, I would like to thank APFC and Malaysian Franchise Association, MFA, for inviting me to speak at the APFC Education Webinar today. I think the webinar is indeed very timely, given that there have been significant changes to the franchise legislation and practice in Malaysia for the past year or so. So this is the agenda of my presentation. I'll talk a little bit on the laws, who should register under the franchise regime, when to register, what is the platform for registration, what are the effects and non-compliance, ramifications of non-compliance, and then we'll leave some time for Q&A. So as a Malaysian, I'm very proud to say that Malaysia is one of the earlier countries in the world with a sui generis franchise legal framework. So we have our Franchise Act 1998 that has been like more than 24 years. And we embrace the concept of disclosure, piloting concept, registration requirements, as well as mandatory provisions. So I'll walk you through the franchise regime in Malaysia. And based on one of the surveys conducted by Advert Global Services, one of the companies that conduct such survey for franchise business for Malaysia as a place to do business, legal concern for international brands has been identified as one of the issues. So seminars and webinars like this will be a very good platform for people to understand what are the regime, or what are the misconceptions and how to address all these issues. So before any entity wants to enter a particular market, in particular Malaysia, you need to consider a myriad of issues. And by all means, these are not exhaustive, right? And as we know that franchise business, intellectual properties, especially brands, would be your backbone or your core selling point, right? So it is important for a potential franchisor who is interested to expand into Malaysian market to consider filing the trademarks in Malaysia. And as we know, IP rights are territorial in nature, meaning that if you protect your rights in your country of origin, such rights will not be automatically extended to Malaysia. So you need to file in Malaysia. And you can do it by way of national filing, meaning that you can file directly in Malaysia, or you can file it through Madrid Protocol, which we became a member in 2019. And if you have copyrighted works like your SOP, your manuals, your programs, your software programs, you may even consider a voluntary recorder with Malaysian IP Office, MIPO, but it's not mandatory for the copyright to enjoy corporate protection in Malaysia. And before you share any confidential information, your trade secrets, your systems, your business format with your potential business partners, you may want them to sign a non-disclosure agreement to ensure that they do not disclose the information shared, beyond the purposes that they were shared. And if you have any other IP rights, be it industrial design or inventions that are inventive that you protect by way of patents, you should actually consider filing them in Malaysia before you actually disclose such inventions or industrial designs. As far as franchise regime is concerned, I think a lot of concerns, or there will be a lot of issues raised. What are the pre-contractual requirements? Do you have the ability to enter into an MOU, a letter of intent, whatever you call it, a term sheet, right, to secure deposit? And normally as a potential franchisor, you want to secure a deposit so that your efforts in discussing or in identifying the potential candidate will not go down the drain if assuming the matters does not materialize, right? And of course, confidentiality obligations as well. And you need to think about the registration requirements, piloting concept. Is it similar to China where you need to have your shop here first? What are the issues? What are the disclosure requirements? And more importantly, when you are negotiating or discussing with your potential partners, you should conduct a due diligence on, you know, the entity. And you could do so using the Malaysian database like Companies Commission of Malaysia, SSM, or CITOS, which is a credit reporting agency. And you could also reach out to MFA, Malaysian Franchise Association, where MFA has a wealth of database on its business partners or the franchisees or potential franchisors in Malaysia. Last but not least, you may want to seek the assistance of local counsel or franchise consultant to advise you on the legal regime in Malaysia. And that's on franchise regime. But as we all know, franchise, even though you may have a franchise law, but there are laws that may have direct or indirect impact on franchising. Yeah, or one very important aspect would be the tax regime, because for any potential franchisor, you want to make sure that the payment made by your franchisees are remitted back to you in your original country, and you want to know whether there's any withholding tax and how many percent do you need to gross up, right? And if you're dealing with consumers or members of the public, you'll be gathering personal data, and you need to make sure that they, your local partners comply with personal data protection, especially in light of a lot of leakages, incidents of data breaches, right? And in Malaysia, we do have a trade and foreign investment restrictions, and it's the license is called WRT. You need to address that in the event you're a foreign investor looking to invest in Malaysia. Employment laws, and if you're in a dominant position or if you are imposing certain terms, you need to actually consider anti-competition law, or we have a competition act. So this is basically a big picture of various issues that you need to address. Of course, the focus on our webinar today would be on the franchise ecosystem, which will be mainly on Franchise Act and the regulation. And that will involve the related documentation, like the franchise agreement, franchise disclosure document, manuals, such as operating manuals or training manuals. And it's very important to be mindful of the regulators. The regulator in Malaysia is the Ministry of Domestic Trade and Cost of Living, and in short is referred to as MDT. What are their current practices and procedures, which may not be found in the franchise legislation? So just a walkthrough of the Franchise Act in Malaysia. So we had our the act was first implemented on the 8th of October 1999. It is called the Franchise Act 1998, but it came into force 8 October 1999. And the first amendment was in 2012, and it came into force 1st January 2013. And the most recent amendment, which have a tremendous impact and changes to the practices and the laws, is the Franchise Amendment 2020, which came into force on the 28th of April last year. So for those of you who may have been quite familiar with the franchise regime before 2022, so these are some of the key provisions, right? For a foreign franchisor, prior to this Amendment Act, you only need to apply for approval under what we call as Section 54. But because of this amendment, now there's an additional provision that you need to apply under, which is Section 6, right? But the good thing is, you don't need to have a separate application. It's one application, it's merged application, and you apply under one application under MyFax, yeah? MyFax 2.0. And with this amendment, there is a requirement for franchisees to, whether the local franchisors or foreign franchisors, to register now. And it is an offense for the franchisees not to do so, okay? And previously, if you register your franchise before 2022, the registration is valid until it is terminated or suspended. But now there's a period of effectiveness. You need to renew every 5 years. So it's not for an indefinite period. So you have to be mindful of when is your expiration date. And if you want to make changes to your franchise agreement, your disclosure documents, or your other supporting documents, you need to obtain prior approval from the registrar of franchise, and it's called a material change application. Okay. And for franchise agreement, there are additional terms that have to be, these are called mandatory provisions in the franchise agreement. They have to be incorporated into the franchise agreement, failing which it is a criminal offense, right? Previously, it is deemed to be null and void, but now they just term it as it is a criminal offense. So who should take steps to register? Of course, foreign franchisor, if you intend to venture into Malaysian market, as a foreign franchisor, you would have to register. Or if you are given the master franchise right, you have to register. Or if you're a local master franchisor, or a local master franchisee appointed by a foreign franchisor, you would have to register as well. So franchisee to foreign franchisor, franchisee to local franchisors. So these are the group of applicants that should submit for approval under the Franchise Act. Of course, I'm not mentioning, people like franchise broker or franchise consultant. Due to time constraint, we'll just focus on foreign franchisors, right? So if you're a foreign franchisor, you need to be in operation for at least 3 years before you could actually apply for approval, because you need to submit your 3 years audited accounts, right? And for a local master franchisee appointed by a foreign franchisor, you have to be in operation for 3 years as well before you can actually appoint sub-franchisees. And for franchisees of foreign franchisors, you need to get registration before commencing your business in Malaysia. And of course, for franchisees of local franchisors, you have to do so within 14 days of signing the franchise agreement. So this is basically a big picture of when to register. And the portal, we have a new portal. Basically, it was just implemented last year. So if you Google MyFacts 2.0, it will bring you to this link, and then you can actually go through them. You can even do a search whether a particular brand has actually been registered. Yeah, so it's important for you to, at least be aware of this portal. And for those of you who have registered in Malaysia before 2022, April 2022, you may think that you can just come into Malaysia and start to operate your franchise. This is just a reminder that with the coming into force of the Franchise Amendment Act 2020, there is now a requirement of re-registration. So even though you may have been approved prior to April 28 of last year, you still have to do your re-registration. And at the moment, NTT has given a 3 years grace period from 1st August 2022 until 1st August 2025 for any franchisors to do the re-registration. And there will be a waiver of the re-registration or the approval fee. So if you don't do your re-registration, this may result in notice of suspension, termination, or cancellation being issued by NTT. And you can't appoint your franchisees, right? And it's also important for you to do your re-registration because unlike the previous registration regime, where once you're registered, you are registered forever until it's terminated. But now you need to renew every 5 years. And in order to determine when is your expiry date, the approval date for the re-registration will be used as the date to calculate the 5-year period. Okay, and another requirement that is not found in the Act is that franchisors and master franchisees must register for their franchisees. And for new registration, assuming that you have not done any registration before this, make sure that you're aware there will be new requirements for foreign franchisors. Previously, foreign franchisors are not expected to submit a franchise disclosure documents, but under the new registration, you have to submit your franchise disclosure documents, and there are other documentation that you need to support. For example, your 3 years audited accounts, your manuals, and once it's registered, is valid for 5 years from the approval date, and there will be new fee structure for local franchisors is 1,000 ringgit, is around 222 US dollars, based on 4.5 exchange rate. I mean, Malaysian ringgit has declined somewhat. And for foreign franchisor, previously it was 1,000, now it has gone up to 5,000. Excuse me. So these are some of the standard documentation for registration. So you need a template of your franchise agreement, and the template of franchise agreement must comply with the Franchise Act. So even if you have a template that you have adopted in Australia, in other countries, you can't just adopt the same template in Malaysia. You need to localize it. You need to make sure that the provisions comply with the Malaysian Franchise Act. And you need a franchise disclosure documents, and that's a prescribed format. And if you have manuals, be it operation manual or training manual, you need to support that. And your 3 years audited accounts and any other supporting documents. For example, if you are not the trademark owners, there is a consent letter from your related entity or from another party. You need to submit that as well. And these are the mandatory terms in the franchise agreement, which must be inserted in the franchise agreement. Otherwise, it is an offense. I will not go through it in details, but if you want the deck, I can actually provide you, with the deck that you can go through, or it can be found in section 18(2)(a) to M of the Franchise Act. If you Google, or even on the Malaysian Franchise Association website, we do have a Franchise Act where you can actually download. And there are mandatory provisions that have to be included into the franchise agreement. Otherwise, it is a criminal offense. So I'll just point out some key provisions, because failure to provide or to comply with this would be an offense, a criminal offense. Yeah. So there's a compulsory practice, meaning that before you sign the franchise agreement, you must provide a copy of the franchise agreement and the franchise disclosure document to your potential candidate, right? At least 10 days, right? So failing which, it may be a criminal offense. And there is a cooling off period in the sense that you must cater for an option for the franchisee to terminate the franchise agreement within 7 working days from the date of the agreement. So if they decide to terminate during this period, this cooling off period, then they are entitled to get a refund of the money minus the expenses that you have incurred as a franchisor in preparing the franchise agreement. Right? So that's another important. And bear in mind, it's 7 working days. It's not 7 days, right? So you need to calculate, in Malaysia, most of the time we'll discount Saturday and Sunday, depending on which state you are. And as I mentioned earlier, there's a material change application that you need to comply with before making changes to the franchise agreement. So let's say you have your template has been approved, and you want to make changes, you want to increase the fees, you want to revise the territorial rights, you need to submit that for approval before you actually implement or roll out to your franchisees. And if you were to require your franchisees to pay advertising and promotion fee, you need to make sure that there is a promotion fund established, and it has to be managed under a separate bank account, and it has to be used only for the franchise business. So if you have 2 brands and you cannot use the money that you have taken for one brand to promote another brand, yeah. And every year, as a franchisor, you need to file in an annual report. In short, it's called LTPF. That is an acronym for the annual report in Malay, within 6 months from each financial year. So if you fail to do so consecutively for 5 years, your franchise registration can actually be terminated by the registrar. So that's very important. And when you submit your annual report, you make sure that you must submit a financial statement of the fund, which is endorsed by a registered public accountant. So other important provisions in the Franchise Act would be prohibition against discrimination. A franchisor cannot unreasonably or materially discriminate amongst its franchisees if such discrimination is going to cause competitive harm. So there are a few things that you cannot discriminate. For example, the franchise fees, royalties, goods, services, equipment rentals, or advertising services. There are some exceptions, but you have to be mindful that you cannot cater for royalty of 5% for one group of franchisees and 3% for another. unless you can justify it. And for confidential information, a franchisee is required to give a written warrant guarantee that it must not disclose the information contained in the operation manual or obtained while undergoing training during or for a period of 2 years. So I must just remind franchisors that these are criminal offenses, right? But if you're aware of confidential information, you know that confidential information can be protected forever, right? So don't give away your rights by just limiting it to 2 years, right? So confidential information can be protected forever and ever. One good example would be Coca-Cola, the recipe, or KFC's herbs, the recipe as well. It's just that this provision is to cater for criminal offenses. So there is a difference, right? And another unique provision in our Franchise Act, which is an exception to a normal business, is it allows franchisor to restrain a franchisee, from conducting a similar business during and for a period of 2 years after the termination or expiration of the franchise agreement. And it's quite important to note that, these obligations relating to confidential information and restraint of trade are extended not only to the franchisees, but to the franchisees, directors, immediate families, spouses, right? So it has far-reaching implications. Some noteworthy provisions will include you cannot have a franchise agreement that is less than 5 years term, so the minimum term must be for 5 years. And there is a provision for extension or renewal, right? And if a franchisee wants to extend, and it gives the franchisor not less than 6 months prior to the expiration date, and unless the franchisee has breached the franchise agreement, the franchisor must extend. Similarly, where renewal is concerned, it is a criminal offense if you don't renew unless you come within this exception. You compensate the franchisee by repurchasing, or you waive the similar trade restraint, or you actually give the franchisee 6 months notice prior to the expiration date. So what are the implications or the effects of non-compliance or non-registration? So as a start, you'll be violating the Franchise Act, right? And when you violate the Franchise Act and it is a criminal offense, you may be subject to prosecution risk, where there will be fines or jail term. Or you may be subject to compound, instead of taking you to court, the regulator may just impose a compound. But from a franchisor's perspective, the agreement will be considered unlawful and unenforceable, right? What it means is can be declared as null and void by the court if assuming your franchisees were to challenge that, right? And if the court were to declare that it's null and void, it can also declare that you cannot appoint new franchisees, and it can also declare that you have to refund all the monies that you received from the franchisee to the franchisees, right? And of course, if you don't register, you can't get the certificate of registration for display, and that itself is another offense. And apart from exposing the companies to the liabilities, you may also expose the directors and the officers. So these are some serious consequences of non-registration. Yeah, so basically these are an overview of the franchise regime in Malaysia. I understand that my time is also up. I believe there are some questions which I will leave it to the moderator to pose it and read out the questions in the interest of time. Thank you so much for your attention.
Yes, thank you, Madam Wong Jini. Always very good sharing from you. I'm sure that participant benefits a lot from your sharing. Now I can see from the question and answer box, there's 3 total number of questions, and 2 already answered by Mr. Derek. And there's one question here on the 3 years of audited account, a financial account. So can I ask you, Madam Wong Jini, to address that question?
Yes, thank you so much, Professor. Yes, in order for you to be approved as a franchisor, be it local or foreign franchisor, you need to be in operation for at least 3 years so that you have your audited accounts, right? I think the rationale for this is if you have not been in operation for at least 3 years, you will not be in a position to provide support or guidance to your master franchisee or your franchisee, right? So the short answer is yes, you need to be in business for at least 3 years and get your audited accounts before you can actually get approval.
Okay, thank you. I guess that answer is very clear, and thank you for the questions and interest. And you can always reach to the secretariat. Okay, that's one more. How about 3 years audited account in foreign country? Yeah.
Yes, that is acceptable because if you're a foreign franchisor,
Yeah.
before you come into Malaysia, you can't operate in Malaysia without the franchise registration, right? So if you have been operating in another country, let's say in Australia for the past 4 or 5 years, then you can actually use your audited accounts in Australia to apply as a foreign franchisor.
Okay, thank you. So you can reach to the secretariat and you can contact Derek and also Madam Wong Jini. So we are towards the end of our webinar, and on behalf of the Asia Pacific Franchise Confederation and Malaysia Franchise Association, I would like to extend a very sincere thanks to both speakers, and I hope that this webinar benefits all of you, and I hope to see you in the next webinar. Assalamualaikum, good day and thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I